amazing day for me, absolutely incredible day, and I thank you all so much. It's been amazing for several reasons, not the least of which is that this event was preceded by the vote of the Electoral College in this very room at that very table. And it brought to mind, as I voted for Hillary Clinton, how sad I was that that vote was not going to elect her as our president. And I think we're all struggling, trying to find ways to sort things out and figure out what we're going to do to take care of things in the best way that we can. And I want to talk about that for just a minute. First of all, there is, of course, the gift of money, which is important. And I'm thinking of, Bernie's $27 that added up and added up and added up, so that if you think you only have a little money and can send just a tad to the EPA, not to the EPA, to the Environmental Defense Fund, or to Planned Parenthood, or to the ADL, or to the ACLU, or to the New Hampshire Women's Foundation, if you can just send a little bit, maybe once or twice, it will add up. And if we all do that, it will make a difference. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I truly believe that this incoming government is going to have to be challenged in many ways. Those challenges may very well come from people who will be working in the government, who will be deep in the bowels of the EPA, or the Defense Department, or the Pentagon. They will find the courage and the strength to stand out and to stand up and to say no when a directive comes down from above to something that they know is wrong. But they will need the power of the people behind them. They will need to know that we collectively are behind them, that we support them in doing this, because being a whistleblower is not an easy thing. So I charge you all with rousing the rabble. And in fact, one way you can do it, if you can't get to the million-person march in Washington on the 21st, the day after the inauguration, if you can't get there, maybe you can get to Market Square, where you will hear the leftist marching band leading people. There'll be people there with pots and pans. There'll be people there with pitchforks, and we will make our voices heard. I want to thank everybody who took part in this day and in making it possible, and particularly the Park Street Foundation, the generosity of so many people in this room. Very significant gifts were made, and I am so grateful to you for those. I'm grateful to Rennie and to Ray for their work, and I guess I am glad that they thought of this. I'm grateful to Rich Harrington for his being the point person in Ray's office and making life a little easier for Becky. In 1679, King Charles II created the first council and presiding officer. At the time, the presiding officer was not the governor. He was called the president. And the first president of New England was none other than Joseph Dudley, my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. And you can imagine what a joy it was to have him in this room with all of his hair as I sat opposite 3 different governors. That was in 1679. There were 279 years that passed between then and 1976, when I took my seat. There had not been one single woman, not one, who had been elected to the Governor's Council in the interim. I was elected in 1976, and things have changed since then. We now have had 3 female senators. We have had 2 female governors. We have had 3 additional members of the Executive Council, and they have all served well. 40 years ago, just about to this very day, by missing a week, I stood in this room and welcomed, with the governor and the other newly elected members of the council, as they came through and shook our hands and wished us well. And we had just been confirmed and were beginning our stretch in office. I served under 3 governors, always under the watchful eye of Joseph. I served under first Governor Thompson, and I was a little concerned about that because, after all, he had thrown me out of his office, literally, 2 years before. But it turned out he was very courtly and invited me for breakfast at Bridges' house. We had pancakes, and we had a fairly stable relationship from then on. The second governor was Hugh Gowan, and under Hugh's administration, there were some significant judicial appointments made, and the Commission on the Status of Women flourished and became a more significant organization in this state. It has now become morphed into the New Hampshire Women's Foundation. And then lastly, the final governor was Governor Sununu, and I was worried about him too, because he had run against me for the governor's council 2 years before, and I had trounced him. But while we were campaigning against one another, we were in a debate in Dover, and he announced from the stage that Mrs. Dudley's white horse has gone over the hill. And that Christmas, a month later, Tom presented me with a silver bracelet that was engraved with the words, "Over the hill, John?" As a counselor, there were several things that were of importance to me, specifically the judicial appointments, and to be able to support the nomination of Linda Dalianis as the first woman on the Superior Court. She went on to become Chief Justice of the Superior Court. Then she was the first woman on the Supreme Court. She went on to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which is where she is right now. Then also I supported Joe Netto from Durham. He went on to the Superior Court, became Chief Justice, went to the Supreme Court, became Chief Justice. Then there was David Souter. For reasons lost in the mists of time, I do not know why I voted against David Souter when he was nominated for the Superior Court. He went on to become Chief Justice of the Superior Court, and then he was nominated for the Supreme Court. And I saw the error of my ways and told him, "David, I would vote for you for anything." And he, of course, was confirmed to the Supreme Court and became Chief Justice, and then he was nominated to the Supreme Court of the United States. And he invited me to come. And so, of course, I went to watch him as he was sworn in and for the reception at the White House afterwards. It was a high moment. Another really significant event, I feel, as my term as counselor, was the time that the Industrial Development Authority brought in a bond for Seabrook 2. Now, Seabrook 1 was well underway, but Seabrook 2 was not complete by a long shot, and they brought in a funding mechanism for Seabrook 2. And I was able to convince my fellow counselors to vote against that. And Seabrook 2 sits as a hollow dome on the shore of the Atlantic right now, and it will never, never open. And that was something that I was very, very proud of. So last May, when Ray and Rennie asked me to lunch, and I've forgotten what the pretense was, but there was one. So we went out to lunch here in Concord, and Rennie immediately spilled forth this barrage of what was going to happen. I was going to have my portrait painted, it would hang in the State House, and Ray added, and you'll be an elector on November 19th, and it's all going to be. And at first I thought the whole thing is too much. I thought the portrait was pretentious and a little silly. And then Rennie said to me, there are 128 men on the walls of the State House. There are 6 women. And I thought about it, and I'm not here for me, but I am here for women, the women who have served New Hampshire well over the years, but unheralded, the women who are serving New Hampshire well, and the women who will serve New Hampshire well in the future. And I decided that I liked the idea. So now we're going to unveil the portrait, and then Paul and Pago are going to lead us in one rousing verse of This Land Is Your Land, and the portrait is going to be unveiled. I have not seen it. It is going to be unveiled by the artist, Alastair, and the apple of my eye, Lauren. Where's Lauren? There she is. Good. Lauren Dudley Hallett. And so they're going to, and then we're going to enjoy a feast from the Washington Street Cafe. And once again, which is where we met for lunch, exactly. So thank you all. Now wait just a minute. Let me get back so I can see it.
Let me get out of the way.
Okay. The paint is still wet.
other side, it didn't say